Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this webinar about websites, making them work hard for you and how you can improve yours or create one which will do the job that you want it to do. Right, just a few housekeeping notes just before we start. This is being recorded, and will be put up onto the Brandwin YouTube channel afterwards. And so you don't need to take masses of notes. You will be able to go back and listen to bits again, so that might help you. I will also make sure that the presentation is circulated so that you've got a copy of it as well. So those are a couple of important notes for you. Also, just to mention that if anyone wants a one-to-one session with me afterwards, I do have a few slots left which are free of charge. And I will be talking about those at the end of this session. So if you're interested in that, do wait until the end of the presentation where I'll give some information about how you might be able to get a free one-to-one session with me. Okay, so welcome to this morning's webinar from Brandwin Business Support. And we are very grateful to Watford Borough Council for sponsoring these webinars to help businesses in the Watford area grow and be more confident in digital marketing. The scope of this particular programme is all around developing digital skills for businesses in the Watford area, but we've opened the webinars up to a wider group of individuals, and I'm sure several of you are coming in from much further afield than Watford. Okay, the idea of the programme is very much to cover just about every base required for being a fantastic marketing digital skills person. So these series of webinars cover all the different topics which you might be interested in. Now, if you've come into this halfway through, don't panic. They're all of the previous webinars are recorded and on YouTube, on the Brandwin Business Support YouTube channel. So anything that you think that should have been covered probably has been. We've got 2 or 3 left to run, and I will give you the titles of those towards the end of this morning's presentation. The scope for today's presentation is all around websites and everything you might need to know or heard about to do with websites and how you can improve yours or create one from scratch. So welcome. This is roughly what the order I'm going to work in. So to start with, what's your website for? Who's it aimed at? When should you be looking at it? And how should you go about it? All the basic questions around your website. What makes a great website? Then we'll be doing a deep dive into the design elements of a website. What will make it work well? A little bit about the fact that we're working in a very dynamic environment. So if you've created a website 5 years ago, it probably isn't working terribly well now because the world it sits in keeps on shifting. You know how often your phone updates itself as operating system. Well, your website needs to be kept keeping up to date with all of those changes. We'll be talking about how to write for a website. It's very difficult to write for a website well, and I'll be giving you a few real top tips on that. How to present it so that people can easily read it and digest the information. How to elicit a response. I had a client once who I was sent to see by their accountant, and he said, well, there's no point me investing in my website because it never produces any leads. I did eventually persuade him he needed a new website, and the very first new lead he got was from Boston Dynamics to place a very large order. So it was more to do with the website, not to do with the fact that websites can't produce leads. They definitely can. A bit about the techie stuff which goes back around the back end. You know, optimization you might have heard about, but it's basically the art of being found on Google. A little bit about Google Analytics and how you can work out whether your website's working, what software to use, and what kind of hosting to look for. Then the big question around blogging, should you have one? We'll just debate that. And then what you might need or want to do next. So that's a quick overview of what we're going to be running through today. pretty broad brush. So that means I can't go into a huge amount of detail, but I will give you enough information to be able to get going. If you've got questions, by all means, put them in the chat, and I will be encouraging you to talk to me via the chat as we go along. Unfortunately, I can't see anybody, so if you raise your hand or anything like that, I can't actually see that. So the best route is to pop something in the chat for me. Okay, a little bit about me. What gives me the right to come in and talk to you about websites? Okay, so my name's Nicola Ryle, and I am a marketing strategy specialist. I cut my teeth, believe it or not, at the Building Research Establishment just up the road in Garston as a civil servant, as a statistician, which is quite amusing, really, with the benefit of hindsight. But that makes me very interested in measuring marketing and making sure that it produces the results that it should be producing, rather than just doing something because it looks pretty. From there, I went to work at American Express and at Coca-Cola. So I've got quite a lot of experience at the big company end. But from there, I set up my own marketing agency, which I did in 1992. And since then, I've been specialising in the small to medium-sized enterprise zone. And that's really anybody from startup to businesses turning over about £25 million and everything in between. I also run my family business, which I inherited from my father about 18 months ago, which is an international export business specialising in a psychometric measure. So I am a small business owner on two fronts, as well as offering advice to small businesses. And finally, I am a co-founder of Brandwin Business Support, which is now approaching, I think, about 15 years old, something like that. And we are all specialists in providing business support to small to medium-sized businesses. And we do that in partnership with people like the Watford Borough Council and Chambers of Commerce and other commercial organisations like NatWest Bank. So it gives you a bit of a broad brush view of Brandwin. Okay, so let's go to the fundamentals of website design. The very first question you need to ask before starting to think about your website is, who is it for? Who do you want to reach with your website? And more importantly, what effect do you want on those individuals? So it's really important that before you start building your website, you have a view of who your target audience is. And then once you've defined that target audience, decide what kind of response you want from them. Now, there are a number of responses that you might be thinking of trying to get. You might want them to pick up the phone or send you an email and make an inquiry about your services. You might then want to purchase something or to book an appointment with you or a demonstration, depending on whether you're in the business to business environment or whether you're in the business to consumer market. You might want to be teaching them something, so educational in some sense. You may just want to knock their socks off and impress them. You know, some people really do only want a brochure site. They have other methods of producing leads, but then those leads want to be able to go and check out the credentials of a company and go and look at the website. That's perfectly acceptable as a reason for having a website. In fact, you know, I think nowadays you would say it's essential to have a website. Then ask yourself the question, what does success look like for you? So how are you going to measure whether the website that you have now created or is in existence is working in the way you want it? So those are the things that we are going to be looking at today. I'm going to start off with an example of a website that I was asked about many years ago. And I'm going to show you what it looks like. And I'm going to invite you to tell me in the chat why you think it wasn't working. So the guy who came in to talk to me owns this business, and he said, I never get any leads. What am I doing wrong? I've paid for a professional web designer to design this website, but it's producing nothing, and nothing I say to the web designer seems to be making any difference. So this is what their website looked like. So please pop in to the chat if you're brave enough. It's always good to have some feedback. Why you think this one did not produce a single lead. Any takers? Contact details are not clear. Bang on, they are not easy to find. Well done, Jackie. Anybody else for any other ideas? There isn't a line to say what they do. No, it's not just demonstrating the effect on the potential customer. Absolutely. Who is the most, well, let me first of all just reiterate that they're offering wedding cars, which when you first look at it, looks more like a funeral service. What is the, who is the most important? What is the most important thing at a wedding? Well, there's a bit of an argument here. It could be the bride, it could be the bride's mother. Let's be a little bit sexist about it, but that is, when this website was designed, certainly the case. Certainly that's not center stage here. The other thing that I would say is, what is the predominant color at a wedding? Is it really black? I think not. So there are a number of things which are fundamentally wrong with this website, and he's spent quite a lot of money on it. What he's done here is he's made the car the most important thing at this wedding, and clearly the most important person is the bride. So I had a chat with him, and we together redesigned his website, and I will show you what we came up with. There we go. Arrive in style for your special day with BPS Wedding Cars. The car is no longer the star of the show, the bride is. And as you say, the contact details are here. There's visit the Facebook page, various other bits and pieces going. We've changed the predominant color to white. Now, this new website created for Brian so many leads that he became the premier provider of wedding cars in his area for the following 10 years. And he was able to sell his business when he retired, which was great. And he was fully booked as a result of that. So all we really did was some very, very minor changes in theory, but the effect was dramatic. Okay, so who's going to be using your website? So would you mind popping into the chat box who you would want your website to be most talking to? Who do you think is likely to use your website? Please pop something in the chat. Customers, great, excellent, lovely. Anybody else you want? Potential volunteers or donors for our charity? Absolutely bang on, good. Any other ideas? I'd go one step further than Jackie. Jackie's put customers here. The people that I also want to talk to are prospects, potential customers. So let me share with you the people that I think should be in the game for you to consider for your website. It's not appropriate for every website, but I think it gives you some food for thought. So existing or prospective clients. Obviously, we want to attract in some new people, and we want to reassure existing clients that they've made a good purchase, or alternatively, make sure that they know about the other services you offer. One of the things I often find when I'm talking to clients is they make the assumption that their customers know all of the services that they offer. But actually, in reality, what they usually know is about the service that they've already purchased, but they don't usually know about all of the others. And that's an assumption of business owners, very frequently occurs, where they make the assumption that clients actually know what they can do for their customers. And sometimes just telling them about that increases sales without having to do anything else. The next group of people are referrers and influencers. So a lot of businesses get referrals for their new clients. So the referrer needs to be aware of what you can offer. So it's an intermediary here. For example, your local Chamber of Commerce might use it. Your local economic development officer might be recommending one business to another business in the Watford area, for example. Your partners, but very few businesses work in isolation. So it's really important that your partner businesses you work alongside frequently know what you do. And suppliers, sometimes it's useful for suppliers to know what you do. Potential employees, it's an opportunity to advertise your business to the very best recruits. The media, for some businesses, being able to get the message out to the media about what they're doing, particularly charitable work, because your CSR policy is very important. This is your platform in which to put it. And as somebody's put already in the chat, charities, they need to reach volunteers, donors, and recipients of their services. Okay, so you've got a wider variety of people in that area. And if you're in a niche market, you may be using slightly different terminology for your customer, in inverted commas. It could be parents, pupils, or patients. So that gives you a broad brush scope of where your website is going. And you might like to think about that list and actually underline who's the most important and what do they look like, what's the demographic of them. So if you're in the consumer market, are they older or younger? Are they male? Are they female? Do they have particular interests? You want to be describing those in those terms. If you're in the business to business environment, bear in mind it's still human beings who are purchasing from you. So for example, if you're selling to other business owners, what does an other business owner look like? They may be older individuals, and therefore that has a big impact on how you lay out your website. Knowing that they're a bit older, they might not be hugely well educated, having worked from the ground up, in which case they haven't swallowed a dictionary. They need to have things in simple terms. They might not have English as a first language. So that's another reason for keeping your English simple. I'll be going on to that in a few minutes' time. We also want to make it simple for people who are very time poor so they can scan stuff to find out the information that they want to give. So let's carry on and say, okay, well, the most important thing is to make it easy for your visitors. So we've all encountered a badly put together website and sworn at it. And got very cross, particularly if it's the only website which is offering the information that you require. If it isn't the only website which offers you what you require, then you're just going to go to another website. And you don't want to be that business where people go on your website and go, oh, I can't find anything that I want, I'm going somewhere else. Okay, so what do you need to do to make it easy for your website visitors? First of all, make it easy to find the information that they want, not the information that you want to give them, but the information that they want. They need to be able to get around your website easily and quickly. Remember, they don't like doing lots and lots of clicks to get to the bit of information that they're finally searching for. It needs to be easy to read, quick, straightforward, easy to read. You need to be found on Google. It doesn't matter how beautiful your website is and how fantastic it is to find around if it doesn't come up anywhere on the Google rankings. One of the points that one of the delegates today has pointed out, you need to be able to find the telephone number, the email address, and all of those kinds of things easily and quickly, again, without too much clicking around. You want to make sure it works on all devices, whether it's a tablet or a phone, and work on all the different types of browsers. So it isn't broken on one browser, but working on another. Now, I haven't read any stats just recently, but the last I heard, it's around about 8 seconds you've got to really engage your audience, and 8 seconds is not a long time. And that's why it's really important that your website is welcoming and looks as though to the person who's come onto it that it's the right website for their needs. Okay, so getting the structure right has got to be a really important element. And you've got to think about what order does the customer need, or the prospect who's come onto the site, or your donor to be able to give money or to volunteer. What is their journey to get to the bit of information they want? And we call that the customer journey. Okay, so it's the order in which people will want to find things and what is going on in their head. So there are certain things that they'll be looking for, certain key pages which they are looking for. So when you're designing a website, the first thing you're thinking of is what kinds of words do your clients look for when they arrive, or either search for it or when they arrive on your website. And it mustn't be your technical language that they're using here, it's the words that they would use to describe the service or product that you're offering. The search terms and these keywords are ones which you will need to use in the structure of the website. That will be in the menu, and also it will be the ones which Google is using, or Bing or Yahoo and some of these other search engines will be using to identify what your website is about. And we'll go on to a little bit more detail about that shortly. So what you need to do is to think about your perfect sitemap. Now, you might hear people talking about sitemap. All the sitemap actually is the pages, the names in the menu, the words in the menu, and what sub-work pages come off that. So I'm going to show you one just as an illustration. Okay, and then the final thing that I would be mentioning here is, what do you want your visitors to do, and how can you make it easy for them to do that? So we talked about contact details. Maybe we need something which you can press or interact with to make it easy to do whatever it is you want them to do. It might be to download a brochure, it might be to make an inquiry, it might be to book an appointment. Doesn't matter what it is you want them. It might be to donate money. Doesn't matter what it is, you want to make that part of the bit really easy. And give some consideration all the way along through this. What do they want to know? Make sure you answer that question. Okay, so these are a few examples of what you might want your visitors to do. Okay, so this is a sitemap, and the ones in blue at the top here are the main menu, which you would normally see at the top of your website. Okay, and then the ones in green underneath are the pages which you might find underneath those. So if you click on About Us, you might have various different options of subsequent pages you might want to go to. So about the firm, about the people, and the testimonials, so about the customers. That might be an example. This is an example for a large format printer, and they specialize in providing the really big banners and signage, both internal and external, in shops, exhibitions, museums, that kind of thing. So these are the areas these are the sorts of customers they've got. So they're welcoming those customers. These are the products that they are selling to those customers. The gallery is some pictures of the things that they have done. And then there's some case studies. Blog, I will talk about a bit later. And finally, the contact information. And then over here, we've got some reminders and notes, which would be things that you would be making sure were included in your website. So in the footer, which is right at the very bottom of your website, on every page, typically, you would include your registered address, the contact details as a secondary place, privacy policy, cookie policy, your terms and conditions, and any copyright notices and any legal lines that you would need to include. So that's always a good place to put them, and then you know that it's on every page and you don't need to worry about it. In the header, which is the bit at the top, which remains often in sight all the time, might do, might not do, but it's the principal thing that you look at. Here you would put the telephone number. I haven't put it, but it's obvious, your logo, you know, the name of the company. Easy to make your email inquiries, any social media, so it's easy to find that if people want to. And then somewhere in a very visible area, we've got call to action. That is telling the visitor what you want them to do next. And key to it, somewhere very prominent, the benefit of using your company to the web visitor. We'll talk a little bit more about that as we go through. Okay, so devices and browsers, you do need to check that your website works on lots of different devices and lots of different browsers. So these will all be familiar to you. There are easy ways of making sure that it does, and you do need to go through some procedures just to make sure that you're happy that it continues to work. Okay, so here's an example of a website of a business which is now closed, so I'm quite safe in saying that this is a disastrous website. You can tell instantly it's very old-fashioned, and that is a reason that that you should update your website on a regular basis, because it screams to people when you haven't updated it in the last 3 or 4 years. This one is too narrow because at that time screens were a different shape, and so people made their website to fit a particular shape, and you ended up with quite a lot of white space down the sides. Nowadays it will move to fill the space irrespective of the shape or the layout of the device you are looking at. So that was one thing which was obvious. We mentioned it earlier, there was no telephone number, and there is no telephone number here. And then we've got 2 menus, one up here and one down here. So when we were talking about making it easy to navigate, almost impossible to find the information that you actually require. Where do I go? What do I do? And from this picture, you would have no idea that what this company provides is the glass panes in that window, because they haven't told you. Okay, so that gives you a bit of a feel of some classic mistakes. I'm now going to be very brave and show you a picture of my current website. Okay, here you can see telephone number, contact details, one menu, and then the benefit of using my company, and also the fact that we have got an award, a gold award for our CSR policy. Then we've got some really quick click buttons to take you straight to bits which might be particularly important to my web visitors. What are they looking for? Here is another one. This is Brolly Marketing, another marketing agency. Okay, do you need new clients? We can reach customers looking for your business. And this is really important because here again, this is the benefit of using them. Get in touch is a touch sensitive button. And again, we've got buttons down here to take you quickly to the right place. So navigation is easy. It tells you exactly what they can offer, really fast and straight off from the off. Now, you might find on some websites nowadays 3 little lines called a burger menu, and that's what's used typically on a handheld device. However, I would advise you not to do that on bigger screens. So it should change. The way the menu is devised to change depending on what device you are using. And that is easy to do with the software, which is currently available to you. So what I quite like you to do very quickly is have a think and maybe put into the chat, what is the principal benefit of using your service, or what is the most important thing you want people to know about for your charity? So from a charity point of view, why should somebody volunteer? What are they going to get out of it? Why should you donate? If you're offering a service, okay, why would they use your service? To smell heavenly. Great, Bruno, that's a fantastic reason to. So you're gonna smell fantastic. Wonderful aroma. Brilliant. And what's it going to do for them as a result of smelling beautiful, Bruno? Is it going to mean that people of the opposite sex are going to lay at their feet and kiss their toes? Or is it just going to help them get the next job because they smell fantastic? There must be some good reasons why somebody would want to do that. So all of the above. Great, fantastic. That goes on the blog. Brilliant. Okay, so there's a few ideas. Do think about it from the client's point of view. Why you? Okay, you can say things like, we offer the best service. Every business in the world will think that they offer the best service, and if they don't, they shouldn't be in business. Okay, so you need to go to the heart of what makes your business different from the client's point of view. Okay, so now let's have a quick look at mobile devices. This is one which I've found. Nobody is ever going to read this. Far, far too much text. You can only just about see that they're accountants, and that's about it. Totally useless. This is that other website that I've shown you earlier. All they've done is it just shows the existing, completely unchanged website on a phone, which renders it completely useless. This one is a lot clearer. And you know, I was talking about the 3 little bars. This is called a burger menu. Okay. And on a mobile device, I think everybody knows what that does. And here's another one. And this one has just got 4 quick buttons. These are the things that you're going to be interested in. If you're going to the Children's Chamber website, you basically need to know what events are going on, how to join, a bit about their members and what the latest news is, and that's it. So it's very easy with a lot of the new platforms to be able to make sure that your website renders itself in this way. And basically what it's doing is it's finding out what device you are using, and it will choose the right home page for that. So the landing page will be then sent down the airwaves via the internet and sort of create itself in the right format for the size screen that you are using. So very important to do that. And I would always advise you to test it before you say your website is ready. Okay, moving on. What is the most important thing to get right on your website? Well, one of the things I mentioned earlier is that you only have a very, very short period of time to impress people, and they haven't got time to read lots and lots and lots of notes. So there's 2 ways of shortcutting that. One is through pictures. This is a great shortcut for showing off what you can do. And I'm going to now take a precision engineer here. They've got this fantastic piece of kit, and that was what was on their website. And we changed that one picture to show this. Okay. And now that has gone from a picture of a piece of kit, which is very uninteresting and doesn't say anything, to we're not robots, we're real people, we're careful and we're expert. And you have absorbed that piece of information without having to do any reading. Introducing people into your pictures is vital for humanizing the service that you provide. Including the picture of a smiling individual engaged with your product can make up to an 80% lift in response rates. So never, never just show your product. Always use your product or service being used. It will make a fantastic difference to the way your website is engaged with. Here is another example. This was the principal picture on an accountant's website. Now, people use accountants because they don't like figures and they don't like doing numbers and they don't like spreadsheets, because if they did, they'd do it themselves. So what you're doing is you're showing them an image of something hugely scary. If we change that picture to an accountant working with somebody to explain to them their options and working through their books with them, the message now becomes completely different. This accountant cares. That sets them apart because they are there to help you. So what pictures can we use? Well, I've got a few suggestions for you, which we'll just run through. Pictures of people, really important. That's fundamental, and you should have them all over your website, smiling people engaging with whatever it is you do. Infographics can be used really effectively to explain something complex quickly and simply. Cartoons, again, that really explains quickly and simply the message that you might be wanting to get through. Tick lists, very, very useful. Checklists of any variety. Flow diagrams. Trying to explain a process is really difficult. Having a flow diagram really makes it go much faster. Charts, graphs, they're very useful too. And sometimes tables, depending on who you're speaking to. So here's my list of the sorts of images that you can use around your website. And I would recommend using a sprinkling of all of them. But the most important is definitely photos of happy, engaged people. Okay, so if a picture's good, what is going to be even better? Any suggestions? Oh, speak to me. Video, yes. You get lots of brownie points. Here we go. Video is even better. If you think the number of images you're going to see, it gives you a great deal of an opportunity to really chat to your audience on a one-to-one basis. Okay, so ideas. What kind of video will work for you? Why don't you pop into the chat something which you think would be a good topic for your video? Bruno, how are you going to manage to show smell on a video? Struck you all dumb. Okay, so I've got some suggestions. One is explaining something complex. People are just, yeah, absolutely, spraying and enjoying. Perfect. Yes, exactly. Being admired. So using the product. The examples I've got here are, this one is explaining something complex in simple terms. So if you've got a difficult product to explain, it shows your expertise extremely well. This one is a case study where the client is describing the company that's provided the service as being fantastic. So yeah, Testimonials work really, really well. And here is a how-to. And here Ariane Paul, she's very, very well known for providing advice and makeup for the older woman. And what she does is she takes herself, as it happens, and transforms her into this wonderful looking human being. And this is how to do the makeup. And she will then sell all of the products which she demonstrates in her video. Okay, so these are some top tips that I would think of. Benefits of the product and service, how to use your product or service, case studies and testimonials, illustrating your team's knowledge and experience. So for example, if you're a mortgage advisor, you could have somebody talking to camera about the process that they would take you through and why they were good at it, or product demonstrations. So all of the above are particularly good, and I'm sure you can add to that list. So why is video a must-have? Well, one, it creates credibility. Two, it creates engagement with your audience, and it's taking something complex and often making it much simpler and more palatable and easy to digest. For a younger audience especially, that's the way they learn. That's the way they engage. So really good for you to have from that point of view. It's easy to share on social media. It's great for being found on social media. So for example, Google owns YouTube. So if you've got a YouTube channel, it will raise you up the rankings. And it can be quick and cheap to produce once you get back to grips with it. There is a talk being done on video creation later in this series, as in June. So if you're interested in finding some top tips from a professional videographer, then do come along to that. Okay, so video is a must-have. Do give it some consideration. Okay, about your team, should you have a team page? Yes, you probably should. If you're a small team and you want to look as though you're punching above your weight, just put the senior leadership team and talk about your senior leadership team, and then it will disguise the size of your firm. And there's a number of ways of doing it. This is one way. You've got a little thumbnail description, but it's got the contact details so you can go straight through to the right individual. Here is another example where the people who work within this company have identified what their job role is. So the people above, I have cut it off a little bit, but they are wealth managers, and the people below do the mortgages and protection. So if you decided that this was the firm that you wanted to deal with, you can go to this page and you can choose the right person for you to speak to. Okay, and you can see all of these photos have been professionally taken. They're really clear. And if you want more advice on portrait taking, there is some in my webinar on LinkedIn, because the same principles apply. Okay, so moving on, copywriting, killer words. I would love you to put into the chat what words you think are absolutely essential to use on your website or any marketing anywhere. There are 4 little words. Any takers? You? Right, now I'm free. Cool. Fantastic. Exactly. We have got them all. There we go. And it doesn't matter what demographic you are. It doesn't matter what period of history. This has always been true. Okay. And I used to work at American Express, as I mentioned earlier. And they tried complimentary rather than free, because they thought that their American Express card members were posh, and so that would be a better word. All that happened was that the number of people who responded dropped. Free works much better. So it's a question of thinking about how you can put those words into your text. And what's interesting about that, it's always better to provide something free than to provide a discount. So 50% free is better than a 30% discount, even though they probably relate to the same amount. the way the mind works is add is better than minus. It's the way the brain operates. So always think about what you can do which has a good added value to the client, but doesn't necessarily cost you a lot. So that's the way. So Bruno, for example, is clearly providing some kind of perfumes going on here. Maybe if you buy one perfume, you get a sample of another one free, or a soap or something which goes with it. Small add-on cost, perceived value to the client is very high. Okay, so your text needs to be what we call client-centric. That's the U word. And what I always say to people is go through with a couple of highlighters, pink and a yellow, highlight all the U's in pink and all of the I's, we, my company's name in yellow. Should be a lot more pink than yellow, and it should start with pink and work down towards the yellow, towards the bottom of the page. Okay, so you and your lead with your customers' needs and desires. Benefits, not features. So that is, what is it going to do for them? So Bruno's example here was, you will smell lovely. That is almost a feature rather than a benefit. The benefit is that people will be happy to stand next to you, engage with you, think you're sexy, all of those things. Use simple language. So think Daily Mail, not the Times. And write your home and about pages last. They are the most difficult pages to do. So do all the technical pages first about services and products, because they're much easier to write. And then you try to write those last pages last. Okay, lovely. So what's wrong with this page? Anybody spot anything which is clearly wrong with this page? Small font, yeah. Too wordy, yeah. Absolutely too many words. Okay, so if you're going to have a bullet point, it mustn't have more than 5 to 7 words. 7 words, no headlines, again, disaster. It's also very wide. So if you have text which goes all the way across, people have to move their head. And as soon as you do that, people have difficulty reading it. What you want is for people to be able to pick out the key things really, really quickly. I will come on to other font use in a minute, so we won't go into that at the moment, but just by simplifying, and too many bullet points, okay? Maximum of 7 bullet points and 7 words, and then it fits. It should never wrap. This is more like an essay than anything else. Okay, so this is a page which I've grabbed off my own website. So we've got a headline, bullet points are nice and short, not too much text. Call to action was missing on the other one. So I've got call to action in the text. I've got call to action over here, and I've got a testimonial. Okay, so the headline is the benefit. Sell more, earn more. What more could you want from your marketing? For goodness sake, isn't that wonderful? Okay, so killer copy. Top tips, I'm just going to read through those quickly. Give them a reason to read. It's all about what they want to know, not about what you want to tell them. Great headline. Can't remember who said that. Was a headline, Bruno? Use questions to engage. Do you want? Would you like? You know, that kind of thing. Use short bullet points, subheadings and captions. They also have a real benefit when you're looking at optimization. Vary the lengths of paragraphs and never make them very long. Keep the sentences short too. Stories are great to explain something. So when I'm talking to you right now, I've given you a number of examples. That brings it to life in a really good way, and it does on paper or on a website as well. Use summaries, and always have a call to action. Tell them what you want to do. It's a bit like Simon says. If you tell somebody what to do, they're much more likely to do it. Okay, so do's and don'ts. Don't have full width, as we've discussed. use short lines, break up the pages, use bullet points, introduce colour. All of those things will make it much better. Now I'm going to talk a bit about fonts and colours and stuff like that. Okay. This is very difficult to read, and it's been very, very trendy to use what we call whiteout text. Whiteout text is typically difficult for people to read. Red writing is also difficult to read, and if you're dyslexic, it's particularly difficult to read. In fact, for some dyslexics, the red writing moves, so it's really not a cool idea. And if you accidentally make it difficult for 10% of your audience or more to read your website, all you're doing is reducing your own opportunity to talk to them. Combining black and red is a no-no. And I have seen a website which was completely black with pink writing. It was A, horrible to look at, but B, impossible to read. Colourblind people can't cope when the two tones are the same. So even if you can read this, there's an awful lot of people who can't. People love to put a picture behind it. If you do that without anything behind it, it's very difficult to read, so don't do it. Interesting, some of the combinations which work really well is a yellow with blue writing. Okay, but basically a dark colour with a pale background is going to work the best for you in pretty well every occasion. Right. Don't use block capital letters. So, for example, when you're in a situation of driving down the street, you never see road signs with block capital letters. And that is because when you're driving, you need to be able to read it quickly. And if you're going to read it quickly, you need upper and lowercase. Italics are also difficult. Underlining just adds an extra line into the equation. So if you're dyslexic and you're already struggling with the number of lines, that's just made it a whole lot worse. Combining all of that makes it even worse. So if you want to introduce emphasis, go for bigger text and use bold. And that will be the best way to get your message across. Sans serif fonts are ones without the little feet. That's probably the best text to use. Okay. Calls to action, you need them all over the place, and that's to tell people what to do. And this one is terrible. People often put it in red boxes or red writing, and as we've just discussed, that's difficult to read. So please don't do that. This is much clearer. Smaller number of words, very direct, and stands out. Putting it in a strange shape also draws the eye. So make sure you add it into the text. Have something which jumps out, maybe a touch sensitive box. Use hyperlinks so that when you press it, it does stuff. And it can take you to an email or an inquiry form. So all of those things are really important. So call to action is very, very important. Make sure you have it on every page and keep it in sight. You can get things which like what they call sticky buttons, which moves up and down the page with you. So if it's book a demo, it's always there. Right, I'm running rapidly out of time. Or as always, try to cover too much stuff. Being found on the internet, I'm just going to rattle through a few tips. So to be Google friendly, or Bing, or any of them, all the algorithms work the same way. There's a mathematical algorithm which works out, this is what your website is about, this is what this individual page is about. And if somebody's put that request into the search engine, it will find your website. If it's a local search, Google knows that and will look for a local website. So think about your keywords and phrases which your clients will use, not what you will use. Use one keyword per page. Include that keyword in the name of the page. So the menu item, the titles, the text, the pictures, everything all stacks up. Okay, and you need about 250 words on a page for Google to really rank it, and your website needs at least 10 pages for it to rank it as well. Okay, so, and using video, what's interesting about Google or any of these algorithms, they cannot watch your video and they cannot see the pictures. So what you call them is really important. So make sure you call them something with a keyword. So for example, in Bruno's case, we might have something which says beautiful perfumes from Watford. And then that would give you 2 or 3 different things it could work with. Now, you might want to measure how you're getting on. Google Analytics is a service which is provided by Google and is free, but you do need to install it on your website, and just Google how to do that and you'll be able to add it to the website. If you've got an agency, make sure that they've done it for you. And this will tell you how many visitors you're getting to your site, what devices they're using, which search engines they've come from, which social media they've used. And this helps you know about your other marketing, because you can tell whether or not the social media activity you're doing has had the effect it should have done. It tells you what pages they're going to, so you can discover what pages are not being viewed and where therefore you need to do more with them. And it tells you how long they stay and which pages they go. So you can then determine engagement. And it will also tell you where they leave from. So it might be they've just gone in to pick up your telephone number, in which case you'll see that straight away. They've just gone to your homepage and left, if your telephone number is on that homepage, and that's fine. But if they're wanting to learn stuff, or they've come from a LinkedIn post which you've done and they want to read more, then you can tell that, and you can therefore tell that your website is working well. Okay, now one of the things which really helps rank your website higher is to keep on changing the content. Now that's quite a lot of work to keep changing the content. So how do you go about that easily and quickly? One of the easiest ways is through blogging. And here's an example. This is my blog. And basically you add a new blog every so often, at least monthly, probably slightly more frequently than that if you want to. And that keeps it recent. The advantage of the blog is clear. It's great for your optimization. It's a good way to talk in an informal manner to your visitors. It keeps your site fresh and up to date. And it's a space for interesting but not core content. So it's the stuff which you wouldn't put in your menu but which is relevant. And also, if something's happened in your industry just recently, which means that things have changed a bit, you can put it in there without affecting the rest of your website. And also, you know, you can remove it when it's no longer interesting. We call our blog Chronicle. Does that matter? Well, only if you have no idea what Chronicle means. So if I'm coming and I'm looking for a blog or news on your website, will I guess that I need to look under Chronicle? And if I wouldn't, and nobody's visiting it, then probably that's the wrong name, Bruno. So yeah, there are lots of names out there for blogs. It might be resources. Mine is called Top Marketing Tips, actually. But because it says what it does on the tin. So I would say for Chronicle, I might not guess that that's what it is. So make sure it's clear what is underneath the button. And if it isn't clear to people, then that's probably where you want to go. And that goes for any of the buttons, to be honest. It's quite easy to do, and good enough is fine. Okay, so you don't need to spend hours crafting it. It's much more just get your point across. If it's not complete, it doesn't actually matter. So, you know, you can see my top one here is case studies that really work. And there's a few tips. It's not supposed to be an exhaustive instruction manual on how to write the case study. In fact, what I'm hoping is you'll read it and go, oh, I'll get Nicola to do the case study because she knows what she's talking about. That's the idea behind it. But at the same time, it whets the appetite. And if somebody really wants to know the basics, it's there for them. The disadvantages of blogs is you must add to it regularly. Now, one of my top tips here is if you don't add to it regularly, take the date off. so that people don't know that it hasn't been added to recently. I looked at a website the other day, and the most recent blog was written in 2019. Clearly they're not keeping it up to date. If they take it off, you can't see that. You need to remove out-of-date articles. So if you're a solicitor, something like that, the law can change. You need to go back and weed those out. So there's a little bit of work just to keep it up to date. Okay, onto the techie stuff. Hosting, platform, maintenance, and who should do it for you. So hosting, there is very cheap hosting out there. And it's cheap because what they do is they put lots and lots and lots of other websites on the same server, which will slow it down. And they will let it get slower and slower and slower until it comes to a standstill. And what that means to you is that your website takes longer to load. And the longer it takes to load, the more likely that person is who's come to visit leaves. So it is worth investing in the right hosting. There's also hosting platforms which specialize in particular platforms, but software. So it's important to get the right hosting for your particular software and the size of your website. We do websites. My company produces websites, and we always use an ultra fast one, and we provide our own hosting so that we can be sure that it's not going to break. Some hosters don't fix things quickly, and you can spend 24 hours with your website down if they haven't maintained their servers. Some of the hosting companies have everything copied and duplicated, so that if their main server goes down, it shifts to another server straight away, and your downtime is less than a minute. So it's worth paying for those different things. Platform. Now, I'm just going to put up some platforms here. You may have heard of Wix, GoDaddy, Squarespace, and WordPress. These are probably the most common website platforms out there. Small to medium-sized businesses tend to go for the Wix, GoDaddy, and Squarespace platforms to start with. You can get something up and running very quickly, but there are some problems with them. They do not allow you to do as much, and eventually you'll reach the walls of that, and they're more difficult for you to do the things that you want to do longer term. Any web designer who's offering to design in these probably isn't a brilliant web designer. I would always recommend going for WordPress as your basic platform to build on. Particularly if you're using an agency, because it's what's called open source, which means there's lots and lots of programmers are out there who are using WordPress. So if you fall out of love with one agency, you've got another agency you can go to. I think there's 500,000 programmers using WordPress in the world at the moment. The other thing is the add-ons. So I can't remember what the statistics are, but the last time I looked, there were hundreds of thousands of apps which you could download. Now, if they call them widgets and various other bits and pieces, but they're the bits which allow you to do more complicated things, like have a calendar, for example, to have a rotator, to be able to optimize your site. Now, WordPress has at least tenfold, if not 100-fold, more of those options available to you than the other less established platforms. So WordPress is probably the best of them, and once you've got your head around it, which is not too difficult, then that's probably a better starting point. And certainly if you're using a third party to produce your website, they should be working on WordPress, not a bespoke one. Spotify is different because that is more for e-commerce. So if I was looking at e-commerce, I probably would look at WooCommerce versus Shopify, sorry. I've got clients who've ended up with both. So yeah, there are advantages and disadvantages to those. But WordPress does have an e-commerce part of it, which is definitely worth a look. Okay, the ones that I've got in the middle here, registration, 123 Reg, they do hosting, but they're also a good place to look for a domain name. Fast Hosts and Rackspace are both quite good hosting providers. Some agencies will provide you with a maintenance package. Which is the way we operate, and that means that you make sure that you've got somebody to go to keep things organized. You can do it yourself. Just bear in mind a lot of all the things I've said today, there is lots of areas where you could trip up. But for a small website, you can certainly do it yourself, and there is no issues. Just have a little look at all of the things I've said and try and apply them. If you're looking to go to a third party, you've now just listened to a whole lot of ideas about what makes a good website. And if they don't mention those to you, they don't know what they're talking about. Okay, so really important that when you're making your selection, you are reasonably well informed so that you can tell what is good and what is bad. You know, there are a lot of people out there who will quote you £500, £750 for a website. They don't have the technical knowledge necessarily to be able to do the whole lot. You've got design, you've got research, you've got the technical side of delivering it, you've got the optimization. And very often people are skilled in one particular area. So they might be primarily a designer and they might look beautiful but not function very well. And it might not be optimized very well. You might get a programmer who's really good at programming but not necessarily know all the technical stuff about fonts, pictures, use of video, the navigation. So be informed yourself. That will help you choose the right supplier, and it will also explain the difference why some people will charge you under 1,000 and other people are quoting you 3,000 or 4,000. And websites can cost anything really between 500 and tens of thousands. I mean, the BBC website's hundreds of thousands of pounds. You don't necessarily get what you pay for because there are people out there who are not necessarily that ethical about it. So be informed. It will help you make the right choice for you. Okay, so thank you for bearing with me as I've overrun, but I did have so much I wanted to tell you this morning. Summary and your next steps. What I suggest you do is to make sure you now go back to your website with all of this information and critically review it if you've got one. On a regular basis, this is your shop window. If you walk down the high street and somebody did not change their shop window for 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, they wouldn't have visitors. Your shop window needs just as much attention. Be benefit-led, use lots of view copy, make sure it's simple and easy to navigate, update it, ideally weekly, certainly fortnightly. Make it interactive, useful, dynamic, mobile-friendly. Use the free Google Analytic metrics which are available to you, and there are other free ones out there, and use a free content management system. That stands for, that's your WordPress or your Wix or your GoDaddy ones. Right, so that concludes my presentation today on website design. I'm just going to draw your attention to what's coming up. So the next presentation on the 26th of May is on optimization. Then we talked about video, that's on the 14th of June. We've got one on email marketing and making sure you're GDPR compliant. And then finally one on CRM systems, that's your marketing database. Okay, so those are coming up. All of the ones above, which you might have missed, are recorded and available on the Brandwin YouTube channel. And as I promised, I've got some one-to-one sessions available, up to 2 per company. I've got a couple of sessions left. Anybody who wants to have a chat with me about any of the topics, please drop me a line. This is the action cards that we use, and these are all the sorts of things that I can talk to you about. So if you want to book with me, here's my email address, nicola@brandwin.co.uk. drop me a line straight away so you're not disappointed, and I will try and book you in. The only prerequisite is that you need to be based in the borough of Watford or be doing a lot of business in the borough of Watford, in which case I can take you on and give you some free advice. That concludes my presentation for today. If anyone's got any questions, do put them into the chat or email me. Thank you very much for attending, everybody. I hope you found it useful. And I look forward to meeting some of you again, because I've seen some of my one-to-one people already in the audience. But please do come along and drop me a line, because I can help you on an individual basis with your specific requirements. Nana, do contact me, because I've got a space for you now. I'm glad to see you're here. Thank you. Thank you very much, everybody, and I will see you soon. Take care and have a lovely weekend. Bye-bye for now.